The fuck? I did a finisher and I got teleported across the map. What the fuck is this glitch now? Oh. I'm like having a seizure. Look, she's humping.
Are you moving?
My character's humping.
It's still moving.
Oh my goodness, that's too funny.
Hey, what is going on, my fellow godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world? I am Vance from Warframe God Builds, and today we're finally going to be taking a look at the build that was requested so often. It wasn't as often as everything else that we've covered, but nevertheless, it was requested pretty damn often, and you guys can finally rejoice because I am covering Miss Magnetism herself, Mag Prime. Now, everybody knows by now the only way to get a hold of Mag Prime is through the relic system that we're all familiar with. However, I will say that after the War Within update, the endless relic missions, they're just not worth it. I mean, I remember a time when T2 survivals didn't require you to use up another key when you went to 5 minutes or 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, so on and so forth. It's really tragic, but I digress. This is a mag video, and it's not a how to get mag video, so let's get on with it. Alright, so in taking a real quick look at her abilities, her first ability, Pull. Magnetic force pulls enemies towards you, stunning them and bringing them into melee range. Her second ability, Magnetize, creates a magnetic field around an enemy target, ensnaring nearby enemies and dealing damage over time. The field reacts to bullets and shards created from the Polarize to increase the damage. Now, this is something that I'm going to have to mention later on, but first I'm going to cover the rest of the abilities. Polarize, emit an energy pulse and depletes enemy shields and armor, creating shards which become deadly when mixed with Magnetize. Shields of allies touched by pulse are restored. Crush, magnetizes the bones of nearby enemies, causing them to collapse upon themselves. I can't say a whole awful lot about the ult. In fact, the ult is kind of overshadowed by all the other powers in her template. The best time to use ult, or I should say the most optimum time to use it, is at the height of a Magnetize when it's just about to explode. Now, Magnetize can be affected positively by Polarize, and Polarize is going to be something that you're going to need to do to replenish your shields for your allies and yourself. So this is going to be really, really nice if you start to use a Polarize, then cast Magnetize really quick, maybe cast a few more Polarizes before you do a Crush. However, with the build that I'm about to show you, with the synergy that it uses, you're not going to have to rely on mixing these powers too much. You can more or less just rely on mixing your weapons with your powers. Now, Pull is probably the only situational power in this template other than Crush. Crush is something that you're either going to use in an emergency situation or at the height of a Magnetize, whereas Pull can be something that you can pull somebody into melee range for whatever the reason, or you could just end up pulling people into your Magnetize. It really is dependent upon how your play style is and what you want to do as the mag user. Okay, so this is effectively how you're going to pull off what we're talking about here. I use one of the new mods from the Silver Grove update called Brief Respite. Casting an ability grants shields equal to plus 150% of the energy spent while overshields are inactive. I combine that with Power Drift, Power Strength, and 30% chance to resist knockdown. The 30% chance, although it doesn't queue as often as what I would like it, it's still pretty nice. Prime Continuity, Fleeting Expertise, Overextended, Redirection, Streamline, Intensify, Shield Transference, and Prime Flow. Now, I'm not going to need to say a whole lot about the shields because Mag is somebody who can replenish her shields, so it's going to be very critical that you keep your shields restored with your Polarize, and thus you want to have high shield rating. That's why we opt for Redirection instead of Vitality, but if you want to go in and fit in too, just go ahead. Just keep in mind that you may have to form a more than what I did, which is 4. Shield transference is present here because, as I said, we're going to try to keep our shields up as often as possible. If ever our shields get broke or a little bit too low, we're going to try to put this back. This is going to help teammates. This is going to boost your damage whenever you use your magnetize. This is going to do a load of wonders for you. And it's also going to make it so you have overshield. So between shield transference and brief respite, you should always be maintaining overshields or getting somewhere near that. Now, prime continuity is present here because we want to try to keep that magnetize going for as long as possible. Fleeting expertise and streamline are there because Mag is somewhat of a caster. You have to synergize her powers very well, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is if your powers don't cost a whole lot to begin with. Overextended is present here because you simply need to affect a wide range in area. It's very, very critical that your magnetize gets to be as big as it can be. That way it can grab as many enemies as possible, therefore eliminating crowds and further protecting your teammates and reinforcing the game. Now, when it comes to weapons, there isn't a whole lot better in the world than a Lanka plus a mag, but I'm stubborn and I like to avoid mainstream meta if at all possible. So I'm using the Miter. And the Miter isn't really impressive all on its own, but the magic starts to happen when you combine it with a magnetize. See, the thing here is you're going to need to build for at least 2 different dual status mods, by the way, and preferably you're going to build for gas. The reason why gas is important is because inside the magnetize, the way the damage numbers work is effectively when enemies draw close to the center of the magnetize, they take more and more damage. What this is going to do for Miter is, because your status is 100%, you're going to proc damn near at every hit that you make. Upon this proc, a gas cloud is going to be released, therefore pouring additional damage into the magnetize on top of what they're already adding by trying to shoot out of magnetize themselves. So the kicker here is that this isn't even necessarily the best build to shoot for when it comes to mag. On the contrary, with Detron, your secondary, you have an alternate form of AoE attack, and that's the wildcard mod that not a whole lot of YouTubers use. That's the thermagnetic shells. This is going to make enemies explode when they die. Thus, instead of having gas payload clouds from the Miter, you're just going to have enemies explode, which is always good, on top of the amazing damage that Detron already gets on its own. So this weapon, just to be clear, is pretty damn impressive as a standalone gun, but when it's reinforced by the effects of magnetize, it becomes damn near it godly. In truth, finding a melee for this build was really difficult, just because there wasn't a whole lot of melees that synergize well with Mag's abilities. However, I have found that the Sancti Magistar complements the Mag powers very well, because there are a number of times in which you can pull off a charged attack and effectively get mostly all your health back on top of objectives. That's right, the Sancti Magistar is going to heal defense objectives, and that includes the extraction targets, you know, the guys that you have to rescue from rescue missions. If they are so close to getting down, you can actually heal these dudes if you're close enough with the charged attack. So what you're going to do with this melee is basically you're going to wait for an opportunistic time to use it. While the effects of magnetize are going wild, you can be hitting enemies on the inside to replenish some health of either you or your allies. When you do pull, you can effectively benefit from the enemies that are downed on the ground. There are a number of times where this is going to be useful, and thus you're going to want to have a powerful build that can get the job done. And look no further, because this is the build that will grant you that said power. Okay, so the only thing we've yet to cover in this loadout is the companions. In which case, I'm using the Carrier Prime here because they recently reworked the Sentinels. And I didn't think I was going to like it, but this new mod ammo case, it increases the maximum ammo capacity and converts ammo pickups into ammo for equipped weapons after a short delay. That's really cool because we can now take off all those pesky ammo mutations that cost an arm and a leg, so we don't have to format our weapons, and we can also not worry about ammo so much and really rely on the damage. On top of the mainstays that I have here, Animal Instinct, Meta Ray, and Shield Charger, all mods you should always use regardless of what companion you have. This is the setup I'm running, minus the actual gun build that I will showcase for you. Nothing's really changed with the Sweeper Prime. I don't put a whole lot of work into these builds because, let's face it, they're just Sentinel weapons. But if you wanted to go the distance with it, this is what I would do, and I would add 3 Forma. You could add more to, swap something out that might work a little bit better, but like I said, it's just for a Sentinel, so it's really not that big of a deal. Plus, this performs really well as is. Now, the last thing I want to cover here is the Zenurik Lens. I know I've showcased this just over and over and over again, but you're going to want to go for energy overflow. That's going to be the thing to do. Again, you're going to want to go for systemic override. That's also going to be the thing to do. I'm really just using the Zenurik here primarily because I'm really concerned with the Eximus enemies and the leeches. If ever they start to drain my energy, I use Zenurik Lens as kind of like an emergency backup call. I kind of have it reserved for when my energy is depleted, and I can just hold my 5th ability and let Zenurik replenish my allies and myself. That's going to be really useful, especially when you're bunkering down for the long haul. You want to make sure that you have energy at all times. You don't want to have to rely on energy restores too much, although I will advise still using those, still keeping those in your gear ready to go just in case, the shit hits the fan and you need energy immediately. Zenurik and your energy restores are going to be the way to go for that. In closing, I've got to say that I found myself enjoying my experiences with Mag. I remember back when Mag was first released and being hyped, she just wasn't that big of a deal. There was nothing about her that was very alluring. She just didn't provide much to the team. And then along came the Greedy Pull augment, which was great. I don't know why they nerfed that. That was really stupid of them to do that. I don't agree with that at all. And then after they nerfed that, she went right back down the list of Warframes that are underused, and so I felt like they needed to rework her, and after they did, the pendulum, it swung, back to in her favor. Mag was never really good, and the stereotype of her being terrible stuck around far longer than what it needed to be. In fact, I would say that she's beyond viable at this point. She's reached godlike potentials, so long as you can avoid nullifiers at all costs. And I just hope, with everything in me, the Digital Extremes is gonna nerf those guys at some point, because it's really stupid to have your Magnetize eliminated just from a nullifier touching it. I think it's stupid for a nullifier to eliminate any power that it touches unless it touches the Warframe itself. But that's neither here nor there. Mag, by herself, being able to fight into in-game content, she's a very viable Warframe, and she's definitely worth your time. And I'm hoping that she was definitely worth your wait. So if you liked this video and you found it to be very insightful and you learned a thing or two from it, it always helps if you smash that like button, as always. And also, as always, the details for our merchandise store and our Facebook fan page are always in the description down below. So if you're a new viewer, then I would consider subscribing, because it goes a long way into helping me as well. And until next time, I'm Vance, signing off.